Hey, it's Warren Huart here. Hope you're doing marvelously well. Please, as ever, subscribe. Go to producelikeapro.com and you can sign up on the email list and you'll get a whole bunch of free goodies. And of course, if you like, you can try the 14-day free trial. We have an academy there, and inside of the academy, there's a whole bunch of guys and girls who are mixing songs that we provide every single month. And there is a forum in there, and it's really fantastic. And there's some special free offers and stuff and discounts available to Academy only members. So check it out. It's great. 14-day free trial. Let me know what you think. Okay, what are we going to do this week? Well, what we're going to do, I think, is really, really fun. We are going to do a video on ribbon microphones. Ribbon microphones. Wow, that must be the most misunderstood of all microphones. It's probably, to me, the one that gets used the least in most studios these days, but is used by so many professionals I work with. For instance, this particular beauty over here, the Royer 121, is arguably the next most popular mic on guitar after a 57 with many of my friends. Lots of guys and girls I know use a 57 and or a Royer. There's quite often a combination of a 57 and a Royer. I know Barry Rudolph, for instance, has told me that he'll use a Royer across and then a 57 on directly. Because ribbon microphones in particular, because ribbon microphones work in a figure of 8 pattern, which means they are hearing front and back, not just the front. So with that in mind, you have to think how you're going to use a ribbon. When I was doing an album recently where I used ribbon mics on rooms, I put one of those SE reflection screens on the microphone. I had a Shure ribbon mic and I had it facing at the drum kit. Then I had a reflection mic behind it because I was trying to focus and get the specific sound of just the drums directly coming straight at me to create some distance. However, you could have moved that reflection around and got just the sound of the reflection from the room. So the reflection screen would have been the other side. There's some fun things you can do with ribbon mics with that figure of 8. Don't let it put you off. However, when you're using them on things like electric guitar amps, you're talking about a huge amount of volume coming out of here. So putting it up like this, it might be hearing out of the back, but it's nothing compared with what it's hearing outside of the front. Only when you start pulling it back a long way do you really start hearing that balance between front and back. So the 121. Great microphone, very well used. A good way for us to sort of test these other microphones, to test against these other microphones. Next up is a new one. I'm very, very excited to hear this. This is a guy out of Detroit who hand makes these. They're called Mesanovic. I'm really excited to hear this because, you know me, I love finding out cool new things. I've heard great things about it. I also hear that it's only been out a little while and it's already selling like hotcakes, just based on reputation. So let's hear it to really find out. I mean, the fact that it's made in Detroit, the fact that it's handmade, it's really quite light. It's very beautifully it looks very beautiful. So let's try it out. Let's see what it sounds like. So we've got a 121, very well-known microphone. We've got a Mesanovic. Now here we're going to go for some old favorites. This, the 4038, the Coles, is arguably one of the most famous, if not the most famous, ribbon mic of all time. I suppose if you're from England, you think it's the most famous, bearing in mind it was designed, of course, by the BBC. If you can see closely here, it has the BBC patent number on it. I've used these many millions of times. They weigh a ton. That's a solid microphone there, if ever I heard it. I use them often on drums, especially in really aggressive, overly bright rooms. They have a natural kind of roll off at like 13K, and they just really pick up the top end in a very unique way. Very silky smooth, not too bright, not too brittle. Great microphone, another one for us to hear against. Now next up is AEA. Now AEA are a pretty unique company. The guy that owns this company was an RCA microphone manufacturer, and he got RCA NOS, new old stock. So there's a lot of old RCA components that go into making the microphones. I don't know how much there is or what is in this particular microphone, but I will tell you as an AEA microphone owner, I can tell you these microphones are fantastic. They're really, really amazingly well made and beautiful sounding microphones. So it's kind of a cool shootout because I don't think there's a bad mic here. I haven't heard this one yet, the Mesanovic, but I hear great things about it. So I think we have a great collection of 4 of probably the best ribbon microphones on the market. So this is going to be fun. We're going to use it on the Rode amp here. It's going to play some electric. I'm going to use the BAE 1028. So we're going to use the same mic pre on every single one, and we'll be able to hear. I'll try not to adjust the gain. If I do have to adjust the gain, I will mention I'm adjusting it so you can get an idea in the differences of gain from each microphone. I'm going to print them here into Pro Tools, and we'll make them available for download. So there'll be a little Google Drive link that you can click on and get them. You'll just click, go and download the files so you can hear each individual one. I'll make it simple. I'll play the same guitar part in each one with the same guitar sound, of course. So it's going to be fun. Let's try it out. Why don't we start, because I've been waffling on so much about it, why don't we start with the 121? That makes the most amount of sense. That's kind of, I don't know if we use it as our control, but I know probably, unless you've been in more esoteric studios, you may not have used some of these other ones. This is one you may have encountered a little bit more. It's been out for a little while now. But either way, we'll start with that. And then, of course, we'll move through all the microphones. Okay, so this isn't going to be a science. This is just going to be approximation, but as near as darn it. So let's at least take a couple of precautions. So here it is. It's a little over, it's about 3 inches. It's 3 inches from the grill cloth. And I'll make sure it's pretty much centered. Let's go here. So we're going to do it. It's going to be centered. We've got it centered with 3 inches off of the grill cloth. And we'll make sure that every single mic is basically the same. Now, it'll probably, obviously this is the brightest area of the dome on the speaker. But, you know, it's a ribbon mic and they're renowned for being a little warmer anyway. So, hey, I'm not going to move it around and experiment with different positions. I'm going to keep it in the same position for every single one so we get a way of referencing. Okay, so let's grab the guitar. Cool, so let's try a couple of different things. I've got the Hot Driven Boost, 1993 to 2003. I'm assuming that's covering loads of different Marshall models, maybe? Actually, I have no idea. But anyway, so we're going to try that boost pedal here just to add some drive to it. So I have a clean tone and a driven tone. So it's going to record. That's kind of cool. I like it. It's smooth. We go on the bridge pickup. Just super clean tone. Nice. So let's get some drive on it and go to the bridge pickup. It's kind of a cool tone, I like it. It's definitely warmer, the top end is nice and smooth. I like it. Great. Okay, so let's move on to, where should we go next? Let's go to the coals. Okay, so just making sure everything's at the same. Near as darn it. Could maybe come down ever so slightly. Okay, so pretty centralized, 3 inches off. So the first thing is the output. The output's quite different. Here is, that's definitely a lot hotter. So I'm going to come down a click on the BAE 1028. It doesn't look like it's going to be a full click, somewhere in between. So I'm just going to pull the output down slightly, coming out of the pre. See if we can match it. I like it. It still looks like it's slightly hotter, just a little bit. I try to match the level. I'm probably going to get it exactly right. It looks like it's a little hotter, even click down, a full click, and the output reduced very slightly. So it's somewhere probably in the sort of 6 dB difference or whatever. But look, that's not an exact, reason to prefer one mic over another. It's just hotter. That's just the way it is. Okay, so now let's move to, let's play some chords. So I'm just going to do. Pretty warm. Okay. Bridge pickup. Let's get some rock in there. It's got a lot of girth, just my gut reaction is there's a lot of like low, mid, some fullness in there. I mean, we're just doing it on guitars. I can see why even to this day, a microphone that was invented, I don't know, how many years ago? 40, 50 years ago? Lots of experts here, not me, you can tell me. A very old microphone still is being manufactured and still being sold. It's a really, really great microphone. Okay, cool, let's move on. Let us go to the AEA. Okay, so let's set up this one, the AEA. This is the R84. So, okay. Let's give it a listen. I'm excited to hear it. Okay, so I'm just going to do a Shift+Opt+D, duplicate it. Those of you that aren't on Pro Tools, you can ignore that, but that's just a quick way to recreate the tracks. Guitar. So AEA's plugged in. I'm taking it back to where the Royer is. So it looks like it's pretty comparable. Let's try it out. nice. I've always liked these. I have one of them myself. Great. All right, perfect. Okay, so let's put in the drive. I would venture to say, I'm not doing a direct comparison, that has a lot of low mids in it too. Those two definitely, this one in particular seems to have a lot of oomph behind it. Which I think is the characteristics anyway of ribbon mics, is just that fuller sound. But you know, again, I'm not an expert. The whole idea of doing this is so we can compare. So last but no means least is the Mesanovic. Okay, great, so let's set this one up. Down a little, try and get it centered. Pretty centered. Coming a little closer. Pretty comparable. Near as darn it. Definitely not again. This isn't science. This is just guitar player dude, me. Okay, here we go. I don't know what it is, but this is a much better than top end than any of these. The amp's pretty bright in the room. This doesn't have that characteristic rolled off kind of ribbon sound, which of course is like a lot of reason why people use ribbons. They like that. But this has got a... pretty darn good. Okay. I'm having a lot of fun with this. It has that girth that I want, but it also has that extra brightness. So for electric, all right, so look, I don't need we're going to give you audio samples of all this, or me jamming away. I don't need to be a rocket scientist to know the difference. That definitely has an extended top end. Look, ribbon mics are renowned for their silky smooth top end, and I suppose sometimes lack of it. So it's not so much, you know, this might be that microphone that's a little bit more general purpose. But anyway, so let's do some comparisons here. So I'm just going to solo through them quickly and have a listen. 121. That's 121. Take a little section and loop it. Now we go to the AEA from the Coles. Back to 121. Now the Mesanovic. Now the 121 has better top end detail than the Coles and the AEA, but doesn't have quite the low mids, I suppose, of the Coles. There's a chunkiness to that. And the AEA. Back to the Royer. The Royer definitely exhibits a lot of the warmth, but has an extended top end, and then the Mesanovic. I suppose, you know, you could argue maybe the Mesanovic's a bit of both. Top end, detail, and extra low mids. Okay, so here's the Royer on the heavy stuff. Pulse. Okay, so immediately, I love the Coles low mids, but I miss the high end detail of the Royer. Here's the Royer. Good high-end detail. The Coles has got loads of low mids, but it also sounds a little cloudy. Okay, let's go to the AEA. Back to the Royer. I mean, lots of people love the Royer on rock guitars, and I can see why. I mean, look. Coles just sounds cloudy on off-axis. The AEA is probably somewhere between the two. It's got the low mids of the Coles. Let's go to the Mesanovic. Mesanovic's pretty special. It's interesting, the Mesanovic, I brought down the output just a little bit, but it's still printing a little hotter. But yeah, generally, I mean, the Royer is really, really good on heavy guitars. People love it on rock guitars. I can see why. It's very balanced. And some of those excessive lows probably aren't something you keep in the mix. The Coles is a wonderful mic, but it's a little too dark for me on that top end. The AEA definitely has a slightly better detail than the Coles by far. And the Mesanovic seems to have the low mids of the Coles and the AEA. 121 defined electric guitar ribbon mic. Like I said, starting off, so many guys I know use it, and I can see why an electric guitar is really spectacular. The Coles on electric, clean, I loved, because the extra high-end whatever seems to have just disappeared. You know, that kind of, it's smoothed it out, shall we say. And it's got some chunk on the funky parts. The AEA has a little bit more high-end detail for me. I could be wrong, but it sounds a little bit more high-end detailed, but still has the chunk of the coals. What I mean by chunk, I mean those low, mid fullness. And then the Mesanovic seems to be a little bit more balanced all over. In a perfect world, and I actually owned all these mics, which I don't, you know, as you know, we borrowed these from VK. Thank you, Vintage King, for lending this to us. They lent it to us so we can do the shootout and decide for ourselves and let you guys show. But every single one has a particular thing that I like about it. Let's go to acoustic guitar, but I bet you it's going to be, we're going to know what we're going to find here. Great, so we've got the Royer back up here. We've got it, we're going to be about between the 12th and the 14th fret here, which is pretty typical. I'm going to sit back a little bit, try not to get too much boom from here. So I've just picked up the, I'm going to try and get, this is roughly 5 inches, so we're going to try and be the same place every time. So let's hear it. Cool, so let's set the gain. I'm giving it 1 click up from where I was before. Obviously, we're not using a hugely loud electric. That maybe come up another click. Cool, so let's try it. Going to record. So here we go, 12th to 14th fret, about 5 inches back. So I've come a couple of clicks up, obviously, from the electric. So let's try it. It's going to do some chords, maybe an arpeggio. We're 12th to 14th fret. We're about 5 inches back. Let's try it. Sounds great. Great. Okay. So just some twiddling there on the acoustic. Like I said, no science involved, just regular good old musicianship. I think what's interesting about doing this, though, is that this is the real world. If you're going to get to play around with some different mics, you're just going to do things like this. You're not going to be, you know, you're not going to be putting an oscilloscope on it. And, well, maybe some of you are, but I'm not. All right. So I just did Shift+Opt+D. I'm now going to go to the Coles. Another mic we haven't been trying that I've used for years is the M160, but I don't have one here. Immediately again, a little bit more output, so we're going to bring the output down a little bit on the Coles, but that's quite a difference between the two. So here we go. Get it in the right position. Here we go. Cool. I mean, it sounds great. It may not have quite that top end detail, but it's fat. But it's interesting because there's that impression. You love the warmth. I had the same feeling when I was doing the rock stuff. But then when I compared, I immediately loved the Royer more because it had the more the top end detail. But you know, it's funny how we react to things in the moment. Like I do love that warmth. Don't get me wrong. Those low mids are really beautiful. But we'll see how it sounds when we compare. All right, so next up, we're going to do the AEA R84. Okay, so here it is, the AEA. Might want to come back up a little bit so it's closer to the Royer, where the Royer was. Cool, let's try that. Yeah, you can definitely feel the warmth that you can with the Coles. By the warmth, I mean like that kind of low mids. I'd hasten to guess that just like we did on the electric, the top end maybe slightly better than the Coles, but not as quite as good as the Royer. Cool, great. Okay, last but no means least is the Mesanovic. Get to that. Okay, let's just drop this down a bit. Wow, a lot more sensitive, a lot of output. So. Try it. Gives me that similar kind of feeling, you know, has the top end detail, if not even more extended than the Royer, and has the lows and the low mids and all that kind of girth that you want from a ribbon. Kind of feels like it's got the best of everything. Just like I've done with other stuff that VK have given us, I actually don't know the prices of these, so this could be a lot more expensive than the others, so. But I will say it's really good. But anyway, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say in England. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So basically, how do these taste? Now let's give it a listen. Let's go through one at a time. So we'll go to our Royer, and we'll just listen to those chords. The Coles, back to 121. As to be expected, the Coles is full and fat and sounds fantastic, but the Royer just has better detail on the top end, which is what we expected from the electric. Now let's go to the 121 again. Now the AEA. Coles. Royer. I mean, similarly feel like I do with the electrics. I mean, I suppose that's what to be expected. Obviously, each instrument has its own sort of frequency response and everything. But again, you know, between those three, the Royer is definitely the fullest sounding. What I mean by fullest, I don't mean just lows. I mean like got the highest top end, the best top end detail with the low mids. The AEA is special. It's pretty special. The Coles. Coles has a nice mid-range that I wouldn't have expected. You know, considering how much darker it was on the heavy electrics. But like, here's an interesting thing we're learning is that just because, you know, microphones have limited or extended frequency responses or whatever, they respond in different ways to different sources. So I actually really kind of like the Coles. Even though it doesn't have that high end, that might be my preferred for some acoustic parts. But then you go to the Royer and you've got all that top end detail and you're like, it's lovely. So let's have a listen to the Mesanovic. Go to the Royer. I feel the same way. It's got the huge girth, the lows, the low mids of the Coles, which the AEA has as well, but definitely got that real body of the Coles. But it's got the top end detail of the 121. Interestingly enough, though, I would use the Mesanovic on acoustic any day, but I'd probably roll off some of the super lows. The 121 is probably closer to what I would use without doing any EQ. So there you go. You see, here's an interesting discussion about microphones and characteristics. The 121 on an acoustic guitar doesn't have the full lows that the Coles has and all the Mesanovic and even so much of the AEA. However, it kind of would be nice on acoustic guitar because it would be something that I wouldn't need to roll out the super lows. The Coles is actually a lot better on acoustic guitar than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be muffled and I wasn't going to pick up the high end. But strangely enough, it is there. Not as detailed as the Royer and certainly not as detailed as the Mesanovic, which seems to have a lot of high-end detail. And the AEA is the AEA is kind of Royer, Coles. It's somewhere in between the Royer and the Coles for me, that it has the warmth and some of the top end. It's a better extended top end. Still sounds old school, classic ribbon. And the Mesanovic is exactly what you think it's going to be. It's like the souped up, kind of extended high end ribbon, but still keeping the super lows of the classic mic. So interesting, you know, they're all great mics. Talk about, as my grandfather would say, horses for courses. You've got the Coles is the classic BBC dark fat ribbon mic. God, if I was in a room, and I've been in rooms that are so unbelievably bright, like they've got a huge control room glass on the whole one side, and they've got mirrors and really reflective surfaces. I use Coles on overheads, and it's so wonderful. It reduces all the brittleness in the room, or I use them for room mics, and it just reduces that brittleness. The Coles are an amazing mic for that kind of thing. The 121, it was really nice on clean guitar, but on electrics, it was amazing. Heavy electrics, fantastic. That's why so many guys use them on heavy electrics. Wonderful. The AEA, the R84, fantastic. I mean, it has some of the classic lows, like it sounds like but it has an extended top end a little bit more, definitely more than the Coles. So it feels like a classic ribbon mic. I mean, AEA make incredible mics. But then the Mesanovic is special because it seems to have the lows, the fatness and the body of the Coles, but with the extended top end and more of the Royer. So wow, talk about 4 incredible mics for 4 different purposes. For me, quickly, 121 probably is a great jobbing mic that would do anything. Definitely acoustic guitar, couldn't believe it. The Coles is slightly specialized, but something that would be amazing in your arsenal. The R84, the AEA, is probably something that's closer to the Royer in many ways. It has the body of the Coles, and then definitely a higher top end than the Coles will have. And that could be an all-purpose mic, and frankly, that's what it gets used for a lot. We have one of our, I think it's the 44 we have sitting on a piano over there, and we use that all the time. This is the first time ever using the Mesanovic. Pretty darn special. Great extended top end, loads of body like a traditional ribbon mic. Spectacular in most performances. I don't know the prices of these mics. I haven't checked out. But it definitely has a high-end extended kind of feel. And I like what I read about the fact that the guy hand makes them. Anyway, 4 incredible mics for 4 different purposes. We'll have these files available for download so you can listen. And you don't have to agree with me. That's the whole point about doing this, is like, and this is just one guitar player producer's point of view. But great mics. We probably chose 4 of the best mics on the market when it comes to ribbons. And just a great selection of microphones. Hope that helped. Hope when you get to download these, it clarifies a bit for you. Thank you ever so much for watching. Thank you ever so much, VK, for letting us have these 4 microphones to compare. I really appreciate it. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. And of course, sign up for the email list and try out the 14-day free trial and have a marvelous time recording and mixing.